In Chinese, it's called 草泥马. And people say it's like me. So I use this a lot.
Welcome to Mosaic of China, a podcast about people who are making their mark in China. I'm your host, Oscar Fuchs. I want to give a big thanks to the magazine That's Shanghai for featuring the podcast in its online edition last week, and especially to Ned who did the interview. So in case there are any new listeners, welcome to you. I think the back catalogue of the podcast adds up to around 8 hours, so all you have to do is stay up for one night and you'll be all caught up. There you go, you're welcome. Today's interview is with Nini Sum. We talk about her life and work as the co-founder of the first independent screen print studio in China, as well as her take on artistic expression and the art scene in general in China. And you'll notice straight away that she has a very hypnotic way of talking, so this episode should be a nice, slow and relaxing one. Well, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
I'm here with Nini Sum, and Nini is an artist and also the co-founder of IdleBeats here in Shanghai.
Yes.
Well, I want to know all about that, but first of all, what is the object that you have brought in today?
I brought in a screen print. So the name of this screen print is called Intergeneration. So it's a handmade print art. The main character is a grandpa riding a bicycle carrying his granddaughter. And they are looking through a traditional Chinese garden gate. And through this gate, you can see a gradient from the sunset red to yellow and to blue. And the background is actually the modern city. So it's a mixture of real and surreal elements. It's a fairy tale happening in the city, but also like a dream that you can dream of the traditional Chinese ink painting scenery.
Right. And what does this mean to you, this particular piece?
This is how I see the modern life right now in China. So you have a lot of daily life going on in the streets with all these big buildings, but also everyone has a spiritual world. It's almost like an oasis in your heart. Then you can go maybe time travel, go back to the old days, or like dreamland within your daily life.
Wow. And your voice has a dreamlike quality, so it's kind of making me almost go into a different world right now. Well, you mentioned this is screen printing, so what actually is screen printing?
Screen printing is actually one of the oldest printmaking method. So same like woodcut, like the Japanese ukiyo-e printmaking method, and also like etching, copperboard printing. They are all printmaking techniques. But screen printing got quite popular last century by these pop artists like Andy Warhol. So it's basically using a piece of silk stretched on a wooden or metal frame, and you use the photo exposure technique to expose one image onto the silk. So part of the silk is sealed by a photo emulsion, and some parts are through. So then you put some ink on it, then you press it with a squeegee, like a printing board. Then the ink got squeezed through the silk and forms a graphic. So each color takes one screen. Then, for example, this print takes 14 to 15 screens to make. And it always comes in an addition, because you print the first layer like 50 times and the second layer again, and in the end you get 50 prints.
So for a print like this, each different color would be a different screen print.
Yes. So it's like almost like a manual Photoshop, but you do everything by hand. So maybe each color is a little bit different, and the positioning is a little bit different. And sometimes I like to add some hand painting effect into it. So each one looks almost the same, but it has a human touch in it.
Right.
So this one maybe took me 3-4 days to make the whole edition. I think the edition is 16. Yeah. This is a very complicated one to make.
Right. So tell us about IdleBeats.
IdleBeats is an artist collective of me and my studio partner Gregor Keuting. He's a German artist, and we are the first independent screen printing studio in China. We found the studio in 2009, so 10 years ago. We've been running the studio here in Shanghai for 10 years now. So Geigo and I, we both make print art and also do visuals for musicians, such as album covers or music posters. And recently we do also like public arts. So actually it's not really only limited to screen printing, but back in the days when we founded the studio, no one was doing this. And also we run a community screen printing space also under IdleBeats. It's called IB Print Club. We also work with brands and also do like commercial art collaborations. Actually never really intended to start a screen printing studio and never really thought like that. It's just because in college I got to know this art form and I found it really, really fun to play with. And after college, I wanted to make some of my drawings into prints so I can share them with my friends and families, because they always like, I want something you make and blah, blah. Then I was making oil paintings, but oil paintings I cannot give you one because it's only one piece. That's why I thought, okay, maybe I try with screen printing, then I can make an edition and share with other people. So I just got some equipment and made some prints and also like t-shirts and tote bags. So those are also can be screen printed. Then once I started doing that, I found out actually people really curious about it. So 10 years ago, actually not really too many people know what this art form is, especially Chinese kids. They're super curious. Then we also got contacted by a music club, underground music club called Shelter in Shanghai. So I started making like music poster art. So it was just really a fun game to me.
So when I think about screen printing as an art form, like it has a kind of underground edge to it. Like, has it always been a little bit subversive, or is it quite mainstream?
Actually, it's pretty divided. So actually there were some factories existing already in China, and their job is to help the established fine artists make duplications, like copies of their original works. For example, if I'm a super famous artist, I make oil painting, then I would hire a print factory to make it into a screen prints edition that can sell and make more money. But we use it more like independent art output.
So how easy is it for someone to come in from scratch and to make their own artwork?
So within 2 hours, actually, you can turn one simple graphic into a screen print. It's actually quite easy way. The entry level is pretty low. That's why it's such an art form for everyone, not just for the elite, or you have to go to the art school and learn the art history, or you know how to paint well. No, screen printing is really for everyone. So people who come to IB Print Club for the workshops, they can be like, okay, yesterday I made a doodle drawing and I want to make it into a t-shirt. Or I took a photo of my girlfriend, I really like it, can I make it into a print and give her like a present? It's all doable. Yeah.
That's great. And so how would you describe the independent art scene in China right now? Recent
1 or 2 years, actually, I'm really excited about the independent art scene in China, because when we started doing this 10 years ago, we hardly can find a crowd who appreciate this kind of art. It's mostly expats, I have to be honest. People who appreciate this art and who would really buy it or hang it in their homes. Most of the Chinese, they either go for the fine art market, buy super expensive arts, or they go to IKEA or even like a street shop, buy those cheap, mainstream, just bad quality prints. But now, recent years, you can see there are many art fairs happening in China, like art events. I recently went to one in Chengdu. It's called the Singularity Art Fair. I met so many young artists there. They are showing their works, and it's in all kinds of wicked forms. I just feel like the young people, younger generation, they have the eager to express themselves and make things. And there are also people who are bringing all these people together, like the host of the art fairs, and also different book fairs in also happening now, not only in China, not only in Shanghai, but also in Asia, like in Tokyo, in Seoul, even in Bangkok, in different regions. I feel like there's really alive, this independent art thing. Yeah.
That's great to hear, because often life in China, it can be quite restrictive. Do you feel any pressure in that regard, or is it mainly positive?
You definitely feel that, especially if you're a content creator. But I also think the way of expressing one's thoughts, actually China is also different to the West. It's never really like a provoking or a very extreme way of expression. In that way, actually, I feel like if you compare to 10 years ago, people are way more dare to express themselves and more creative, definitely.
Right. You're not the first person who said that. I think if you come from a Western perspective, you're used to art being very confrontational and very, very loud and out there. It can be very challenging. But I think you do have the same style in China, but it's just a little bit more subtle. And it's more about the nuances, right?
Yes.
And so you mentioned that around Asia there's various independent art scenes from Japan down to Thailand. So do you do any collaborations outside of China?
Yes, actually, for the past years, we've been doing a art exchange project called Tale of Two Cities. It's a dual city exhibition, which we every year we choose one art studio who has a similar practice like us. Then we invite them here to China to have an exhibition with us, and we also go to their cities. So it's like a two-city exchange. We've done it 4 years already with studio from Paris, Berlin, Cambodia, and also Groningen in Netherlands. So it's 4 groups of different artists.
And how was the experience in Cambodia?
Actually, Cambodia was the one that gave me the most strongest impression, because people there are not like in Europe. They are working under extremely hard conditions. They don't even have enough water pressure, and it's super crazily hot there, and they don't have aircon. But they build everything on their own. Even the exposure box was built just by several pieces of wood, and they put some lamps in it. But they still make beautiful and powerful prints. That's why the experience was really memorable.
Maybe it just goes to show that making art is primal. It's something which you have to do, and it doesn't matter if you have the best technology or the best equipment. It just has to come out, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think that's also the charm of screen printing. It can you can really do it if you want to. So you don't need to, like I said, a higher education or a really fancy art studio.
So how has your own personal art evolved over the years?
After doing oil painting for several years, I found actually it's a more like me talking to myself and expressing my own thoughts, my own little world. But after I moved to Shanghai, actually I feel like the China is changing like every day, and I don't want to stay in my own little world anymore. So I started doing more other kinds of projects and using screen printing. Because of this medium, I can get to know more people and to do classes and do collaborations. And that's why the work now, after these years, is more about the society. Before it was more like surreal and dreamy. But now I try to keep this kind of surreal feeling, but also adding more like real life happenings into it. Like the life that's really happening around me, not just a spiritual world. Yeah.
Do you compartmentalize your life between art and then outside you don't do much art, or what's your free time like?
Actually, for 10 years I've been living as a full-time artist. There's not really a line between free time and work anymore. So sometimes, for example, if you watch a movie and this movie can be inspirational, then I could, like, right after watching it, I would make a sketch or something. So it's really fun. It's already part of the creation. It's already part of the life. And sometimes creation is also relaxing.
And where does that come from? Like, did you come from an artistic background?
Not at all. My parents are both working class, working as a normal, ordinary jobs. Yeah. Actually, this is the only job that I feel attracted to. I was also working in office, but if working towards a commercial purpose, it's I just feel really vain inside. So that's why making art is more like a therapy kind of thing. So every day I feel like it's not wasted. I'm working towards a purpose that is however meaningful to me. That's why I could live happily every day. If I do anything else, I don't think I'll be as happy as I am right now. I just want to be able to create and work on interesting projects and go to different places and get to know other interesting people like you.
I'm not sure if you saw my art. I'm not sure we would be friends.
I'm quite curious now.
No, I'm not being modest. I've never been able to draw.
But you know what? You don't need to draw well. So I had a discussion with this French studio Palafroid. So they both are very philosophical thinking artists. They make really nice drawings, and they would draw blindly, or they would draw with left hands. So it's all for breaking the normal rules of what a good drawing is. Maybe you just draw blindly, but you come up with like an abstract painting. I was really inspired by them. Yeah, so maybe your drawing is like masterpieces, you just don't know.
Okay, I'll do it, and then I'll be a famous artist for all to see. Well, thank you so much, Nini. That's great to find out all about what you're doing. Well, now let's move on to part 2, which are the 10 questions.
Yep.
So, ready?
Yes.
Here we go. Question 1. What is your favorite China-related fact?
I don't really know if this is a fact, but I like how surreal China is and how fast it changes and how alive this place is.
Can you think of any examples?
Like when I was young, even a can of Coca-Cola is precious. I remember this. My parents would take me to the street and also some kind of field trip and would beg them to buy me a can of Coca-Cola. This would be the rare chance. Like maybe for the whole season I could get a sip of that. But now if I go to a supermarket, I see all these products on the shelves. I'm just like, where is this place? It's just a short, maybe 10-20 years, and it has changed so much. New things are popping out all the time. It's really surreal to live in this place.
Well, you mentioned the word surreal, so I wonder, is that what you're trying to encapsulate in your art?
Yes, and I want to keep that feeling, but also add a poetic twist.
Do you have a favorite word or phrase that you'd like to teach other people in Chinese?
Yes, it's called 自然而然. It's like very zen and self-satisfying and natural flow. So I think in Oriental philosophy, there is something that's not really describable with words, and sometimes you cannot force things to happen, but rather feel the feeling and go with the flow and be true to yourself.
Yeah, that when you said go with the flow, I think that's the closest thing that I would describe it as, like go with the natural flow.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to start to use that. Thank you. What is your favorite destination within China?
I would say my hometown.
Which is
Nanjing. Because I really like going back and visit my parents and stay with them. Makes me really, really calm.
What do you think is the best thing about living there, not as a tourist?
Actually, Nanjing is a very slow city, and it was the ancient capital of 6 dynasties. So it kept a lot of great wars from the Ming dynasty, the Zhu Yuanzhang especially. So it's a very historical place. It's very green because it has a mountain in the heart of the city and the big lake. So if you enter get out of the train station, you see this big lake. And when I was little, I always paddled the boats on it, and also go to the mountain a lot just for climbing. And you can go to the astronaut center on it. So Nanjing is a place I think really good for living a chill life.
Lucky. If you left China, what would you miss the most and what would you miss the least?
I would miss people most, like my parents and friends. And the least would be construction noise.
Oh.
Damn, it's just too much.
But actually, I've got to a point now where I just focus it out and I don't hear it very much.
But it's everywhere. And sometimes like my studios, you can hear this from a building like far out. When I go home and it's at 11 p.m. at night and somebody's sawing the wood out there, and I literally just jumped off the stairs and I was shouting at them like, what do you think you're doing? The grandmas and kids are sleeping. I'm gonna call police. And they're like, why you make a big deal? People are so ignorant and about this. It's the thing I hate most.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
What about the next question? Is there anything that still surprises you about modern life in China?
Yes, actually, recently I got invited to do a very interesting new project, and this surprises me because I didn't know that. I wasn't expecting they would come to some artists like me. This is a VR project. Yeah.
Where's your favorite place to go out to eat or drink or just hang out?
Actually, my friend's studio. So I have several artist friends. They all have studios around my studio's area, pretty downtown. I like going there, see what they're making recently. And also sometimes I invite people here to my studio, having a beer.
Right. It's funny, you're never really far away from art. Even when you're hanging out around art.
Oh my God, it's terrible.
What is the best or worst purchase you've made in China?
Best purchase. I bought some artist friends' merchandises. Like they sculpted some candles. So it's like a sculpture, but it's also a candle. Then you can burn them and the sculpture just melts. I think the idea is really cool. It's also something that you can just buy easily. It's like 100 kwai or something. So this is what I'm talking about, this new ideas. And people are also adapting arts into everyday life and making products, and they make that and sell that, and they have more money and go back and make more ideas. And I like buying stuff like this. Yeah.
Great. What's your favorite WeChat sticker? Okay, can you describe this?
I don't know. This is in Chinese. It's called 草泥马. So it's like this kind of. I don't know what kind of animal this is, like a sheep or something.
I think it's a llama. Is it a llama?
Oh, yeah, I think it's a llama. Yeah, that's the name of it. And I just like his face. It's like just chewing, and you're like, hey. And he just turns into like, what? Like, don't really, it's really silly. And people say it's like me. So I use this a lot.
What is your go-to song to sing at KTV?
Linkin Park. Yeah, because I don't really go to KTV. The last time I went there was maybe several years ago. And when I was in high school, the Linkin Park was really popular. So it's like me and my some classmates, and they are doing the rap parts and doing the singing parts, or it's a long time ago.
I kind of want to see you do that now. You're very softly spoken, but I can see that you have a punk side to you that would come out pretty strong.
Yeah.
And finally, what other China-related media sources or news outlets do you rely on?
Before there were a lot of art magazines, like Art and Art World or something. Then you can see the latest exhibitions. But now it's more like people are sharing their information in their moments, and WeChat mainly. Yeah. Right.
Well, thank you so much, Nini.
Oh, thank you, Oscar.
And my final question before you leave. It's the same question I ask every guest. Who do you recommend that I interview next?
I would recommend Zoe. Zoe is a friend who is a comic artist, and she's also in a band. And she does this amazing comic art group called Shaving in the Dark. And she is very enthusiastic with putting a community together and do the creative output. And she's bilingual, really smart, really talented. So I think you should have a chat with her.
Oh, that's great. I actually ran into her because I was doing a presentation and she was in the audience doing live art. As I was doing it, she was drawing it. It was so impressive.
Yeah, I think that's she does every day, like it's like her job. But yeah, she's really smart and really fast.
Okay, I can't wait to talk with her. Thanks so much, Nini.
Thank you.
So the first thing I would like to point out is Nini's WeChat sticker. You can see the llama on Facebook and Instagram, just search for Mosaic of China there. And I'm always trying to encourage people to comment about their understanding about all things Chinese in the community on WeChat. But this time, if you know the double meaning of this sticker, then maybe keep it to yourself just this once. To join that community, please add me on my WeChat ID, s01e16, and I'll add you to the group there. Apart from that, you can also see Nini's object, which was one of her prints, and there are another couple of examples of her work there too. There are some photos of the studio, IdleBeats, with her collaborator Gregor, and there's an image from the Singularity Fair in Chengdu that she mentioned. It's a lot bigger in scale than I was picturing in my head. And finally, there are a few photos of her favourite place to visit in China, her hometown of Nanjing. Before I leave, mentioning the historical city of Nanjing offers me the excuse to give a long overdue shout out to the China History Podcast, or CHP, presented by Laszlo Montgomery. If you heard episode 8 with Vi Vu, she mentioned that there's a history podcast which is one of her favourite sources of information, but we didn't name it. And if you listened to last week's bonus episode that I recorded with Shannon Martin, I also mentioned a great history podcast, and again I didn't name it. Well, it's this one. Chinese history is extremely daunting. There's this dynasty and this emperor and that battle. If you're like me, you'll have no clue where to even start. Well, Laszlo's podcast is where you should start, and if I sound a little bit flustered while saying this, it's because Laszlo is in the Mosaic of China WeChat community, which makes it all the more embarrassing that I hadn't mentioned it until now. Mosaic of China is me, Oscar Fuchs, extra editing support from Milo de Prieto, artwork by Denny Newell, and China support from Alston Gong. Next week's episode is a fun one, and it'll be the last one before the winter break, so I'll see you then.